Hello everybody and welcome back to one of these rare episodes of our Dungeon Boss Editorial series. Today I'm going to be talking about two topics that have been on my mind lately, both of which are very popular amongst the in-game chat and on the forums, which is why I want to weigh in on these topics here first. So, as you can see from the start, I am talking about Solaris. Solaris is the newest, latest, and greatest hero. She has shaken up the meta. She has basically changed the rules, made certain heroes more powerful, making some less effective as well. So first off, I wanted to express my, joy or gratitude as far as the Solaris release. Now, what I've seen in Gen Chat and personal communications to me and even sometimes from me, it seems like a lot of people are they're on the fence as far as Solaris. Either they absolutely love her or they absolutely hate her. More times I see this as those people that don't have her and are trying to attack her on PvP defense, they can't stand her because they can't beat her teams. Those people that actually have her actually love her quite a bit because she has made things easier for them to, do raids for and actually get some wins. So let's talk about Solaris just at the core of what she means for Dungeon Boss in the game. Now, I personally think that Solaris is exactly, 100% exactly what PvP needed. Now, I had said this for probably at least 6 or 8 months that I was not happy with how PvP had actually run and how it was basically a one-shot meta who can basically, kill your guys in one hit and then move on. And so this was extremely evident with the Koros release. When Koros was first released, he was also magical, so people that had Koros on defense were also getting their Koros one-shot. And for a while, there was basically some Koros teams on offense that were just almost untouchable. When you use Emily in a certain way and Leo in a certain way, Koros was untouchable. And basically, it became into a pissing match in terms of who had better runes and who was going to get that kill shot first. I was not pleased with how PvP was working, and there were seemingly very few people on board with my notion that being a good PvPer should not mean you just have the best runes. Being a good PvPer should be that you are a great PvPer. More to come on that to begin with. So why I think Solaris is good. She's not overpowered in my opinion. I mean, she does have some overpowering aspects, but the great thing about Solaris, so yes, she does have some really great stats. For example, this one here is probably her best trait to start with, this mythical beast. And it's not that she herself is overpowered, it's just she has some traits that make her really, really, really beneficial. And so what Solaris did for PvP is by introducing this hero, we've made other heroes more relevant again. Now, before Solaris, I can't even remember the last time I saw somebody like Julius in PvP, offense or defense. Now, Julius, with his health buff, he's a staple on every one of my teams that doesn't go against another Solaris because of that extra beast health buff. The same goes with some of the other ones. I wouldn't normally put Lupina on my PvP offense or defense because she was just unnecessary. But now when we get to some of these longer matches where we're going to be doing more and more basic attacks, Lupina's epic comes into play a lot more. And so by introducing a hero that makes other heroes around her better and more relevant, I think it takes the game in a very, very, very positive direction. So does she negate all of the other heroes? She doesn't make them obsolete. So there's still plenty of Koros teams. There's still plenty of reptile teams. There's still lots of other teams out there that are still going strong. But as far as shaking things up, I think they have the right idea in terms of what this means for PvP. I personally love the fact that some of the matches that I'm doing, and I've even posted some of the Solaris ones, that they go on for 5 or even 10 rounds, or even longer when you go Solaris versus Solaris. And so this is what I've been looking for a very long time in terms of PvP. So the fact that Solaris makes other heroes relevant is what I'm looking for again with the new heroes that are coming out as well. Now, there had been whispers of a new hero that's going to help the undead team, and if the devs really pay attention to how this worked with Solaris, I think we could make future heroes more and more relevant just by adding 1 or 2 little traits here. So with a new hero that's possibly going to help undead heroes, this could make the undead much more viable in PvP as well. And so then by adding in these other traits to make certain teams or groupings of individuals more and more relevant, we can make PvP much more broad and customizable versus, somebody just has to have Koros or they have to have Solaris. And basically those one or two meta heroes for PvP are still dominating everything. I would like to live in a dungeon boss universe where there isn't a meta series of heroes in PvP that's maybe 10 heroes or less, that you need to have at least a core part of some of them in order to be successful. So I would love it if a new hero that protects undead maybe negates things like the Pwn Undead trait, or maybe even does things like we see with Solaris where they can possibly revive. We've seen this with Hansuke already with his honorable death trait. It's possible that we could see something more like that, where somebody dies in the heat of battle, they can resurrect themselves or something like that. So I definitely implore the devs to think about this when releasing a new hero, not just release somebody that's going to either be an overpowered hero or just a single one-dimensional hero. So when we add in the next hero, think about who we can tie together with them. There have been people that have been asking for something like a samurai team or just a generic armored team, for example. But there's we could include things like Samurai Takume, who needs some desperate attention. Not saying that I want to use samurai in PvP, but if we were to do something that used a samurai team like Takume and Hansuke, we could see some really neat things come out of PvP and have a lot more variation. So, in terms of the Solaris release, like I said, I am very much for the Solaris release and what it has done to PvP. They did kind of counteract this by adding in the ×2 speed. That's kind of hit or miss. I don't really care about it that much because I'm not in the business of doing 1,000 raids per season. Which brings me to my next point, which is a little bit more serious of the editorial nature, and that is what it means to be good at PvP. So the notion of these PvP streaks, right now I'm on a streak of 10. That's neither here nor there. But the notion of removing streaks has been in and on the forums for weeks, and possibly even since they started. So there are definitely certain people that these help, and there are certain ones that hurt. So I'm sort of in the middle. I definitely need the streaks in order to get my trophies the way that I play, but I don't think that it needs to be the way that it is. So I think streaks have a purpose, but they totally mitigate the risk-reward nature of PvP. It's absolutely counterproductive to what it needs to be. So when I look at my PvP, basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to get to Legend 1 every season, and then I pretty much call it a day. Having gone through and done the boss 100 and knowing what it takes to get there and stay there, it's not an endeavor that I wish to take on every single week. And honestly, it's probably not something that I even could do. I mean, it takes quite a bit of commitment to it. If you're looking for some math to crunch the numbers in terms of what you need to get to the top of that, well, let's not even say the top. Let's talk about just getting into the top 100. If you're looking for a rough estimate, let me just pop out here. This is a Saturday night list. So when you look at the boss 100, a typical season end, when you get down to 100, a typical season end is going to be just ballpark, we'll call it 140,000 trophies. So if you're starting at 20,000 because you finished in Legend the previous season, that means you're gonna have to acquire 120,000 trophies. Let's say that for sake of argument, every one of those raids is at the maximum streak, so you get 400. You're looking at 300 successful raid wins to get 125 or 120,000 trophies. Multiply that by, let's say, roughly 3 to 4 minutes per, and you're looking at probably in the nature of between 15 and 20 hours worth of PvP per week. Some people that's easily accommodated, some people it's not. For me, it's not really in the cards. It's not something that I wish to choose. I choose to spend my time on. So, but if you're looking to get into the top 100, keep those numbers in mind. But the big thing that I really don't care for as far as the top 100 is the notion that being at the top of the boss 100 means you're the best PvPer. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. I think that's a laughingstock. So just because you managed to make it, and I'm not going to actively call anybody out, I'm not about that, but just because you make it to the top of this list here and you earn the Legendary Conqueror title, that does not gain any respect from me. So when I talk about being good at PvP, I want proof that you are good at PvP. And so that brings us to the notion of what can we do to make PvP better and actually give a little bit of validation that whoever's dominating PvP is on there because they're dominating PvP. Not because they're doing twice as many raids as the next person. Just because you can do more raids than the next person does not mean that you're a better PvPer than them. So if you take somebody like, let's see. Let's think about baseball, for example. I don't usually watch baseball, but that's like saying that if you let one team play more games, they're going to win more. Does that mean they're a better team? Not really. It's just because they played more games, so they're going to get more wins by default. Which parallels another version in here. When we get into these here, why should it be that this easy, medium, and hard has been a total joke for a very long time? Anybody that's doing these raids knows that this is not easy, medium, and hard. Particularly, we see people all the time that get raids on the right side that look like this, actually. 2,000 rune power or even worse. Or sometimes level 65s. And so, in my opinion, when you get to the top of the leaderboard and you're getting into having all superior runes on your team, you basically, yes, I believe that you should go up the leaderboard, but this gives you the right to earn those rewards. What it does not give you the right to is to basically cash in on wins and wins and wins versus teams like this. And no offense against you, Mr. Kiwi, but there's no reason why somebody should be cashing in on these, especially when these end up on the far right and you're getting 400 trophies for this win, the same as if you're going against this one, a 5,300. There's absolutely no reason on this planet that those two raids should be equal in any fashion. Yet I could go through this tonight and do plenty of raids on the far right side at 400 that will be less than 3,000 rune power. And so what I'm proposing as far as what PvP needs to be, the notion of easy, medium, and hard needs to go. Maybe not to the same extent as streaks do, but I think streaks need to go, but this easy, medium, and hard needs to go as well. So there's already been suggestions that it should be back similar to how it was based on back in the day when you would be offered up trophies based on how difficult the team was. That's actually what I'm going to be promoting here. And actually, what I want to suggest, and I feel like if developers could really take this one to heart, I think the solution has really been there in front of us this whole time. We just haven't either thought of it or we haven't thought of a way to maximize it. So in general, if we were to just remove the easy, medium, and hard and go with something like this, notice in the middle here, honor. I get 130 for beating this team. I get 130 for beating this team. I get 130 for beating this team. The general idea would be is like, why don't we have trophies based on that where, depending on what league you are, or maybe even some other criteria as well, give you a fixed amount of trophies per the win. This here would still cater to the person who does hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of raids. That doesn't make the concept any better in my opinion. All it does is it reduces the number of trophies that are earned, but ultimately yields the same result. Whoever does the most raids is still going to likely be at the top of that list. And that's not helpful for PvP. It does not prove anything for PvP. So what I'm suggesting is, why is it that we need to have something like this where it's easy, medium, and hard, and each one has a fixed number of trophies. I don't like the idea of that, and it's not accurate to what we see. I've already mentioned before that there will be teams on the far right that have 2,000 rune power that are on my attack list that I should not be getting maximum trophies for those. So here's what I propose. We already know that when we scout a team, we have rune power. So rune power, since they came out, has trumped team power. Now, team power has been a factor, I believe, in some of the matchmaking. I don't know the matchmaking formula, nor do I claim to have inside information on how that actually works. But what I do know is that when you go against teams that have huge rune power, for example, these 5,000 plus teams, these are really good teams. So what I'm proposing is, since we already have this graphic up here that shows what it is, we know that the system knows what the rune power is. We also know, we don't see it when we attack, which is kind of a bummer. We see our individual power, but we don't see our rune power. My suggestion is we take the best of both worlds. We say every raid, based on the league you're in, is going to give you a fixed number of trophies. So in this case here, we'll use 130 as the example. Every raid that you do should be 130. But on top of that, then we issue out bonus points. The bonus points are there to dictate who's a good PvPer and who's just doing the regular routine, cashing in on easy victories as a level 70 with all superiors, picking on level 66s with 1,000 rune power. That's total BS in my opinion, and you deserve zero respect in my book. So that needs to go. What I propose is, if you want to prove that you are a good PvPer, you should be beating hardcore defenses with lesser powerful offenses. So in order to do a bonus here, what it would do is it would look at the difference between the defense's rune power and the offense's rune power. This would give the offense the ability to cater a team that plays a major risk-reward game. And risk-reward is what we need in PvP. This will allow us to say that, yeah, I'm a great PvPer. I know that I can take on that defense with underpowered runes. Or in some cases, even do it with a 3-man team or something like that, just to try and earn extra points. You would be wagering your ability for success versus the offset of having lesser runes or even missing a hero. Now, I know for a fact, just by doing some handicap matches that I've done in the past on streams and such like that, that I can win some of these PvPs with 2 meta heroes and 2 junk heroes. Does that mean that I could win a match with just 2 heroes on it and really cash in on those trophies? In some cases, yes. Some cases, no. But what I think is, since the system already is able to determine the rune power for the defense, it's not hard to add in rune power for the offense, and it wouldn't be hard to come up with a simple formula either based on tiers or based on a strict multiplier. But basically, I think every raid that you do where your offense has a higher rune power than the defense, you should get absolutely 0 bonus on that. This will allow us, when we start looking at leaderboards, to really see who's doing good in raids. The people that are doing good in raids are going to be the ones that are beating good defenses with mediocre or lower offenses. So this is proving that you're able to beat hard defenses with less than optimal offenses. And so right now, PvP heavily favors the offense. It used to be when it first came out, it heavily favored the defense, and then it slowly worked towards favoring the offense, and now it's really favoring the offense. So my suggestion is that we make it so that the offenses need to do well against the defenses, namely lesser offenses against hardcore defenses. In addition to that, defenses need to be given much more credit for wins. So if you look at just anybody, and this is just me right now, but if we look at your stats, I have a 100% win rate and a 38% loss rate, or defense rate rather. So this is pretty common across the board. You look at any top level player, we can look at their list. The best players aren't getting shitty win rates. They're getting very high win rates and reasonable defense rates. So what we see is that the win rate much more trumps the defense rate. So when you actually do get PvP defenses, you should be rewarded much more for that, especially if the team that's coming into your house has a higher rune power than what your defense does. because that would be the same as if you were a weaker offense attacking a stronger defense. If you're able to win, you should get much more recognition for that. And so ultimately what this will do is it will cater to the person who's taking the risk that says, here's this 5,000 rune power team. I'm going to ruin my team with a 4,000 rune power team and try and cash in on those extra trophies. So this idea obviously is not foolproof. There's obviously going to be, I guess, exploits and ways around it to handle certain things. And just even in legitimacy, the bad thing about this is going to be people that when you salvage your runes that are less than your superior legendaries, if you don't have the runes on your in your inventory where you can lower your rune quality to attack somebody to try and cash in on those trophies, then you're not going to be able to really work that system a little bit. And the same thing goes with just equipping runes. The unequipped cost is going to be, it's going to be a problem. But in the grand scheme of things, I think a more performance-based PvP is what this game ultimately needs. So like I said, right now, the earning number 1 on the Boss 100 is, I don't want to say it's a joke, but it's sort of a joke to me. So the only thing that number 1 ranking has to me, that Legendary Conqueror title means absolutely nothing for me. What number 1 on the list means for me would be right here, these 2,400 gems. That's the maximum worth it would have for me. Personally, I was fine at 100 getting those 600 gems. The amount of effort required to try and get number 1 on this list for a piddly title is not worth it for myself, nor is it for a lot of people. However, if I knew that by doing well in PvP, not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality, if I knew that by attacking high rune power teams and defeating them with mediocre teams would get me more points, I would fight harder for a top spot on the leaderboard. And so that's kind of going to bring us to the end of this particular editorial. Like I said, the main focus of this is I was pleased with how Solaris really slowed down and made the PvP matches go longer beyond the first turn. We need more of that, and we need a reason for people to play PvP other than just a grind fest. And I find it totally ironic and actually comical that so many people, even in the best guilds, they whine and they whine and they whine and they whine how events are just a grind fest. But then when it comes to doing 1,000 raids per season for PvP, that's not a grind. I had to grind just to get into the top 100, and it took a lot out of me. I can't imagine that being easy to try and grind out, especially to get to like the top 10 in the Boss 100. And so the fact that these people whine about grinding in events but then commit 40 hours a week to doing PvP, that seems a bit off to me. So my thought is PvP matches should go longer like they are doing right now, multiple turns. And I think the more that we can do to encourage that, the better the game's going to get. But in order to do that, we need a reward structure that's not going to benefit just the people that can put in the most amount of time. I would suggest putting a limit on raid tickets and such like that, but that would never happen in a game like this. We need to be able to offer a way for people to purchase things. That's how games stay alive, is by having in-game purchases. So, but by having the reward structure based off of how well you're actually doing at PvP and not how much PvP you can do, I think that's going to benefit a lot of people in the long run. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. If you like this video, please show your continued support by hitting that like button, and be sure to check out both my YouTube channels for new content all the time. And always remember, peace is a lie, there's only passion. We'll see you next time.